Welcome to ES Ascension News Transfiguration. Dear Ascending Family, the recent alchemical theme directs source energy inside our cells to excite themselves, fermenting within the flesh, causing divine illumination of the personality. The inner mitochondrial membrane is activated, enhancing its ability to produce ATP, which generates intracellular light. This corresponds to the transfiguration of the fleshly body, or the integration of our ego personality with the inner light presence. When the inner light shines on the histories of the ego mind recordings, it is similar to shining a bright flashlight on the skeletons in the closet. If you did not realize those skeletons were hiding in there, it can be shocking and painful to see. However, this forces transformation of the mental body to open into new dimensions of consciousness, which align us to levels of divine gnosis. Gnosis signifies spiritual knowledge in the sense of mystical enlightenment or deep insight into our spiritual self. On the path of ascension, we evolve through many stages of evolution, which help us to reach increasing mystical levels of higher knowing. This is not linear and cannot be explained or proven through methods acceptable to mainstream scientists. The function of our soul spirit activation is accessed through higher sensory perception, which stems from deep and powerful feelings in the initiated consciousness. Once initiated, we have knowing, and we cannot go back to not knowing. This fact of knowing changes our consent. When we are conscious and aware of the forces we are interacting with, we must make choices about what we are doing in our life. If we have knowing and we continue to make choices based on fear, we will suffer. The choices we make when operating from the internal knowing of an initiate change everything we have ever known as an identity. We are catapulted to place ourselves on the altar of faith and trust, moving into the realms of the unknown, which force us into moral and spiritual dilemmas. This is psycho-spiritual crisis, or the dark night of the soul. Now, we are being pushed to know things previously hidden from view and to see things as they are. This is the invitation to spiritual initiation for some. And for other initiates, it will mean going from the frying pan into the fire. As we see things as they really are, it forces us to make hard decisions and potentially undergo many life-altering changes. We have to be rid of attachments or negative habits that we may have used as a coping mechanism. We clear that which became a crutch to keep us in denial, in fear of change, and create new liberating and healthy spiritual behaviors. This allows us to prepare the groundwork for the next levels of self-knowledge and for our future spiritual mission. Transfiguration corresponds to the element of solar fire, which burns away the shadow forms in the lower chakra centers. The lunar forces connected to the dark mother, the lower shadow forms, start to rise in our body to be consumed in the transfiguring solar fire. The new levels of intracellular light illuminate the lower shadow body reflections, and we are able to sense them when we could not sense them before. Transfiguration defines many different gradations of the ascension experience. Where there is shadow and lunar, these will rise from the cellular memory in the body to be seen. Generally, we will perceive the shadow rising into the area of the body where the memory is attached, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. We witness the shadow rising and all of the negative emotions and pain that are associated with it in our memories, identities, and timelines. The shadow is something to learn how to embrace and not fear. As it rises to the surface awareness, it is showing us exactly where we need to heal. The shadow highlights weakness in our light body that needs to be strengthened through spiritual dedication and devoted meditation with the inner light presence. Transfiguration has many cumulative stages throughout our ascension process, which bring profound moments of clarity and intimate knowledge to the initiate in some form. It allows the body to serve as a vessel for embodied light and to facilitate intelligent transmission of light into the environment or to others in some capacity. This internal light informs the initiate's mind of the direct existence of Christ consciousness, even if that state has not been fully attained. Transfiguration brings knowledge that can never be undone. What the person does with that new knowledge will remain their choice. As we stand at the crossroads in the realm of the unknown, the current knowledge we have been given is undergoing integration with our cellular body. We will come to realize in the future that this was a major milestone that was required for our continuing ability to expand the Christ consciousness. The solar, Buddhic, and cosmic egg. When we allow our ego personality to be shattered and fully withdraw its control over us, we are released into our true spiritual nature. The human body is designed as a replica of the universe, and we are asleep in the microcosmic egg until we wake up and begin to unite with the macrocosmic egg of the universe. The human body is embedded in multiple dimensions of invisible worlds that make up our microcosmic egg, or auric body shell. Our microcosmic egg enters conjunction with the macrocosmic egg when we spiritually awaken into the later parts of monadic activation. It is during the monadic spiritual initiation that the invisible worlds, incredibly, start to be made visible to that person. As the ego body is rejected and slayed, we begin to break through the layers of our auric shell into the cosmic egg. When this connection is made with our true holy God parents, we are blessed with their herogamic union or sacred marriage, which births the solar egg and golden embryo within our aura. The golden embryo is birthed inside our human body, and the seed germinates within our hara complex to recreate our identity in cosmic Christ consciousness. This has also been referred to as the solar sacrum, which purges the lunar principle of the feminine. This solar egg holds the golden embryo in the aura that gradually births the golden child of Christ consciousness within a human body. When the golden embryo is seated in the solar egg, the lunar reflected light and its many shadow forms will start to gather into what's called the Buddhic egg. This is a spherical body repository for the accumulated moon chain lineages and a variety of lunar forms that have been a part of our monadic family. Because in the lower creation realms, the Mother of God was experienced as a lunar force, this heralds the transfiguration of the Mother Principle into the solar feminine within. The solar feminine aspect of the Mother of God in her Christos body is her daughter, Sophia. This is the third level of sacred marriage called Hieros Gamos in our ascension model. The hydroplasmic liquid light of the risen and embodied Christos Sophianic principle. The level 3 triad of Hieros Gamos union, or the risen Christos Sophia, is stage 1, the solar egg, stage 2, the Buddhic egg, and stage 3, the cosmic egg, which is Christos Sophia, the aeonic pair embodied. Clearing lunar cords and magnetic imprints. When we are birthing the golden child in our lower energy centers, the solar fire consumes our shadow parts existing in the Buddhic egg. These shadow parts contain negative forms, false ego identities, and their memories, which exist within the root, sacral, and solar plexus. The entire core structure of our body and our previous ego identity may feel like it is being decimated by a wrecking ball. During the current stage of the galactic law of alchemy transmission, Capricorn principles of fermentation to multiplication, the destruction of the old internal structure is especially potent. the etheric cords, magnetic structures, imprints, and mind control machinery from the lunar forces are being severed from manipulating the lower chakras. Many of these mind control structures on Earth were held in place through magnetic imprints transmitted from the Moon, an artificial satellite. The Orion forces from Saturn have been using the Moon as an outpost to transmit lunar forces to Earth. They have used the moon chain lineages as workers for this purpose for many millennia. These moon lineages have been inherently responsible for the mind control transmitted to the Earth to create gender separation, sexual misery, and misogyny. The mother's female principle and instinctual emotional body within us must be reconfigured and filled with the radiant light of the solar fire. The main energy centers impacted by these levels of mind control transmission are the ego personality centers, the first, second, and third chakras. So as these levels of lunar cords are cleared or consumed in the Transfiguration flame, this shifts the entire platform of our core identity. For some, this has felt disorienting and destabilizing to our inner sense of security and stability. When we feel our sense of identity being destroyed, the mind may panic and personal security may feel threatened. The transfiguration of our identity can be painful and feel like our heart is breaking as the golden egg is cracked open and starts to consume the lunar and astral identities. Sometimes during the cracking of the egg, we will face an extreme situation or life-altering change, which puts us through intense emotional changes. We may see the many faces of identities that we have been in other timelines flash before our face in the dream state or on the inner screen of our vision. These are monadic bands of spiritual identity from other timelines integrating their consciousness memories into the auric egg. The intensity of the emotional catalyst acts as the spiritual catalyst to crack open the density of the physical body to accept new levels of light and elevated consciousness. This is a time to be extremely careful with your body. Pay attention to your environment. If we are on an emotional roller coaster of pain and mental confusion, this can lead to accident and injury. Sometimes, if our ego is unwilling to let go, the catalyst to slow us down and get still is accident or injury. This is a time for deep reflection and inner stillness while this is transpiring, learning to let go of external stimulation and the ego's mental chatter. When we do not understand what is happening to us, we can descend into terrible suffering and pain. In this stage, we are forced to challenge and face our inner demons as they show themselves in the solar light, so we can liberate them and ourselves. We cannot allow fear to control us. Discerning the nature of spirit forces. This can be a stage of redemption for satanic and Luciferian forces that may have been attached to us, as these forces rise to the surface and challenge our faith and authority with God's Spirit. The process of deliverance for these lower spirits of satanic and Luciferian forces can manifest in a variety of ways. Sometimes they will be made manifest in the earthly plane in a human representative in order to see them as manifested. When they manifest in forms and situations, unfortunately, most people cannot recognize what they are looking at. Most people are unaware there are dark spirits that are assigned certain purposes by the humans and non-humans who evoke them. We live in a multi-dimensional world with every kind of spirit force one could imagine. There are spirits of hate, spirits of rape, spirits of poverty, and spirits of pedophilia. We do not want to communicate with these spirits unless we are qualified to perform deliverance or transiting. Most of these collective forces of spirits were earthly humans once, who over time were bound to a consciousness theme from their own repeated actions of committing the same. It is important to comprehend that absolutely everything on the planet has some type of consciousness or spirit. When you observe it operating in mass in the world, then it means there is a type of consciousness spirit behind that action. There are dark spirits and there are truth and light spirits. These lower spirits are manipulated and embodied by people. This is the nature of consciousness, so it is important to discern the nature of spirit forces. Usually, if we are unwilling to look inside ourselves, we will have external lessons of growth and necessary change. If we are attached to old ways of life and material things, we may refuse change, and that will make us suffer. If we continually refuse to grow emotionally and spiritually, we will experience many things that will increase pressure on us to change. This can take the form of illness, injury, accidents, or having to face great adversity and challenge. Many of these circumstances are actually requiring that we face our inner demons as they have manifested on the earth. In order to free ourselves, we must see this for what it is and liberate ourselves from their control. We liberate ourselves by calling on the spirits of Christ, such as the spirits of humility, deferring to God's Spirit and casting our personal burdens to divine will to serve the higher divine plan. The purpose is to discern what it is, to call it out, and know it as the imposter spirit, to know the difference between the eternal light of God and the forces of darkness and shadow. During this phase of transfiguration, many of us will face the inner demons of despair, the demons of addiction, fear, and agony. Some of us will face these same demons on the earth plane and provide deliverance for these creations to be released from their bindings and returned to the heart of Holy Mother. Through the transmogrification of the Dark Mother's lunar forces, being united with the solar fire, through the unification with the cosmic egg, the previous consciousness intelligence of the universe activates consciousness memory from before the separation. The cosmic egg holds the record of the original times of creation before the fall of humankind into material incarnation. When we break through the cosmic egg, we experience the unification of all creation before the separation that occurred from the wall in time. The fall is the forgetfulness of humanity's divine spiritual nature, forgetting our direct relationship to the universe, the planet, and our interconnection with all of life. The Golden Child and Geomancy. As we are birthed into this level of the golden embryo in the later stages of the spiritual ascension process, the body starts to prepare for the impending birth of the Golden Child, or cosmic Christ consciousness. This level of consciousness knows the earth is imprinted as a living holographic reality of our multi-dimensional universe in geomantic structures. The planetary architecture is a universal holographic template that can access certain qualities of multi-dimensional consciousness on its surface geography. The golden children, holy sons and daughters of the sun, are naturally evolved into studying forms of geomancy and geomantic structures through the Unity Consciousness platform of which they are a part. Geomancy is the study of the cosmic, solar, stellar, and planetary energy bodies, and how these collective energetic forces are configured within our body's consciousness and within the planet, as well as the practice of interacting and communicating with this living, intelligent energy matrix. The Golden Child perceives these complex energetic configurations between the cosmos and the planetary body. The negative alien agenda has attempted to damage the human neurological system, erase memories, and shut this higher knowledge down through mind control and victimization. However, the embodied Christic consciousness brings these matters into increased awareness and attention when the being has devoted themselves to be of service to the planet and humanity. Many of these Christic beings are starseeds and indigos that came to Earth to remember to do this geomantic work and to anchor cosmic energies on the planet at the end of the ascension cycle. Geomancy has been mistaken for an occult practice as simplified divination using patterns in the soil, or the performance of certain forms of divination, such as rituals that are confused with black magic practices. This has been perverted intentionally by the negative alien agenda to remove this geomantic knowledge from the earth. The negative alien agenda poster child, Aleister Crowley, who published many occult works on geomancy and divination, lost much of the truth in the process. Geomancy becomes corrupted by the service to self orientation of a person's egomaniacal motivation for self-gratification and earthly power. When geomancy is performed by people with motivations of greed and power over others, they steal energy resources from the rest of the population, which is called consumptive modeling. Consumptive modeling is a form of parasitism and is used to create lower material spirits, such as those evoked in Satanism. In the mainstream, ideas of geomancy are considered fodder for a fantasy movie or fiction story. Generally, whoever believes that collective consciousness and intelligent energy exist on the earth and in nature is considered delusional or crazy. To experience the reality of geomancy, one has to know that everything is alive with consciousness, that plants, animals, and the earth are all conscious, living beings. If we think of these things as dead or inanimate objects, we are disconnected from the pain and disease we create on the earth. To keep humans disconnected from the earth, this knowledge is ridiculed and hidden. This is to stop spiritual consciousness from expanding and, in certain sacred sites, to legally prevent groups of people from praying, chanting, or meditating at these sites. As an example, in many of the Egyptian temples, this spiritual-related activity is frowned upon and can get you ejected from the premises. Performing meditation in certain historic sacred sites can get some of the visitors and guards exceptionally angry, as they have been mind-controlled to think those people are crazy. As a part of serving the cosmic Christos family, we learn that this esoteric energy field and spiritual current is the way to ground the 7 higher heavens into the earthly plane, enabling the planetary consciousness and human race to ascend. As a part of the Christ consciousness, this fact of living in a holographic reality becomes a living, breathing part of our daily existence on the earth. We are here to unite the heavenly spheres with the earth. Thus, we may travel physically or spiritually to these places. When we give up the ego, we are able to communicate and interface with the various geomantic structures, spiritual forces, entities, and holographic geography. We have deep knowing that we are in service to help activate the divinity on the planet via the consistent interaction with these levels of consciousness. Through the acknowledgement of our interconnection with all life and the universe, we recognize the necessary liberation of our essential spiritual nature as the goal for all human beings. When we reach this level of self-realization, the planetary logos will communicate with our consciousness and help to direct us to specific locations of geography and geomantic structures. We can unlock our consciousness from being trapped or oppressed by directly interacting and meditating with these sacred and holy sites on the earth, and by directly working with energy configurations in our body and with the many different vortex points on the planetary body that hold geomantic form. These sacred and holy sites are geomantic markers made by our ancestors, many of whom were extraterrestrial, to help us remember who we are as spiritual beings. Many of these places are nodes for intergalactic networks that allow communication links into other dimensions of time and space. Contemplate the World Wide Web of the Internet. Think of how we surf the web and how that data is programmed, collected, and distributed. That process gives you a clear example of how these consciousness grids on the earth actually work. Geomantic knowledge lost in cataclysm. Previous to the Atlantean cataclysm, most cultures on the earth understood that the planetary body was a complex living matrix of multidimensional consciousness. They understood that the land and geography was filled with vortices, energetic power points, archetypal patterns, ley lines, memories, and etheric living creatures that work with those subtle energies. Cathedrals, temples, shrines, pyramids, and ancient megalithic structures were intentionally built on top of these power points to accelerate the forces of nature and cosmic energies to enter into these sacred structures. Today, their ruins are scattered all over the earth, some visible, while others are buried deep under the substratum and bedrock. As these multidimensional forces entered into these sacred sites from an intentionally created grid network, they could be amplified and accessed by the people present at that location. Multiple vast areas on the earth were connected together through running currents of frequency and life force that connected throughout many of these sacred sites. This is why the same pyramidal architecture or masonry style is seen repeatedly in the ancient megaliths spanning continents throughout the world in unrelated cultures. These sacred sites were designed as human sanctuaries to intensify spiritual and natural forces, to expand consciousness, to bring peace and balance to the state of the planet, to bring health and well-being to the humans and the nature kingdoms. The Atlantean cataclysm plummeted the planetary body and human consciousness into a very dark age of tyrannical control. The advanced technologies were forgotten, extraterrestrial histories were forgotten, and the human race fell into amnesia of who they once were as multidimensional consciousness beings. Humanity's evolution digressed to the Stone Age after the Atlantean cataclysm. Extra-dimensional entities that evolved into the negative alien agenda took advantage of this human vulnerability and targeted those humans who still remembered the ancient knowledge of geomancy. Geomantic arts were preserved and studied by the esoteric mystery schools that were originally established by the remaining Essenes, Cathars, and Christ races that were left on the earth. Some were living in the inner earth and helping human evolution from there, only coming to the surface when possible. These families of Christos Essene Templars had to hide the geomantic knowledge and themselves because they were hunted and killed for it. Those who remembered galactic history and had DNA intact with cellular memory were targeted for genocide. The women were made breeders of hybrids that would take over this Templar geomantic knowledge and use it to help assert tyrannical power over the earth. Much of the knowledge of how to communicate with the earth and cosmic forces was lost and taken over by the negative alien agenda at the time of planetary logos invasion. Thus, many of these sacred sites were intentionally destroyed and disconnected from these cosmic and natural forces. They fell into ruin and disrepair, buried and hidden, blown up with explosives, so humanity would forget what their original function was. Now, these sites are promoted as tourist traps, where ridiculous cover-ups are made using scientific speculation of their original purpose. And these fabrications are stated as historical fact. Today, the most powerful sacred sites are currently located in the most poverty-stricken and corrupted countries. Any local can advertise himself to be a shaman or guide, to turn a quick buck by telling a few stories to the tourists. This is a part of an agenda to spread misinformation and confusion among the masses. These sites reveal to us that everything in the universe is connected through divine pattern and purpose, that all of creation is of intelligent design and nothing is random. These ancient sites tell us it is our responsibility on the earth to maintain the higher connection to the universe, that humans are the bridge between the microcosm and the macrocosm. These sacred sites hold energy that can be distributed from the land to the people. The human body can intelligently direct energy to heal the earth body and to simultaneously build our light body. They reveal humanity's true history as guardians of the earth kingdoms. These sites have incredible amounts of historical information about the earth in holographic recordings, which expose what has been written in the history books since Sumerian times as false histories or false records. Holographic geography. This is why many of these sacred and holy sites are hidden from the masses and controlled by the military presence of the controllers to prevent or limit humans from accessing these sites. Have you ever noticed armed guards or a military presence at many of these sacred sites? Have you ever been bewildered by a pack of angry scientists arguing over the carbon dating of a sacred site and what its real purpose is? It's obvious these archaeological areas are a hot topic filled with many opinionated hot tempers. Why are many of the academics so angry and hostile? Because if the truth is made known, how old these structures really are, our entire world history would change. Unfortunately, this is an important part of the negative alien agenda cover-up to suppress the truth of these sacred sites and their geomantic structures from being made public and available. Much of the public simply doesn't even know these sites exist, apart from the megaliths that are obvious. There are thousands more sacred sites strewn and buried across the earth's body. We can visit them with our consciousness if we are denied access to them in the physical realm. When we are spiritually activated into these levels of monadic and Christ consciousness, we can begin to sense the multidimensional landscape of the Earth's blueprint and its many complexities of energetic configurations. What science says does not bother us because we can sense it, feel it, and know it directly through our consciousness. In the early stages, we may not understand why we are feeling deep sensory messages that the energies of the earth are communicating directly to us. We have to learn the language of spirit and listen to the inner feelings we have when earth and spiritual forces are communicating to us. The nature kingdoms may begin to talk to us, or we suddenly have connection to foreign lands, which call our soul to walk on them with a sense of urgency. This is the earth body calling us, through our activated consciousness, to know her again, through her multidimensional realities and holographic geography. It is a spiritually active human that cares about the earth and can support energetic activations of these many geomantic structures located in the holographic geography. Holographic geography can be thought of as somewhat similar to a sound recording of the intelligent energy of the earth. These sound field recordings, made throughout the timelines of history, are created from vibrating matter, like musical instruments or vocal cords. They are encoded in such way that they can be reproduced later, without the presence of the original vibrating matter. When we have developed higher sensory perception and have devoted ourselves to serve the planet, our consciousness can discern or decipher the many different kinds of imprints made in the holographic geography throughout time. At the end of the ascension cycle, we are called to help activate these cosmic energies into the planetary grid to help her ascend that location, creating ascending hubs, and to offer spiritual current to that geographic level of inhabitants, both human and non-human. As our activated consciousness allows our body to be a divine vessel for light transmission, the potential of our service is limitless. We may be able to transit souls, transit fallen angelics, deliver demons, correct geometries, perform reconnaissance work, and take inventory of the grids for the Crystal Star Guardian teams. Geomantic structures. The planetary grid is a living ancient mapping system of multiple energy spectrums of consciousness filled with intelligent geometric patterns of universal creation code. The planetary grid is organized intelligently into layers of geomantic blueprints holding living consciousness geometries which perform specific functions within a precise layer of multiple webbings of energy. The Platonic solids are the fundamental shapes which impact the morphogenetic field of the planetary grid and its variety of geomantic structures. The planet's geomantic structures represent connection points to certain holographic realities of places, such as spiritual locations, sacred temples, or events happening in other dimensions of time. It is possible, with a prepared consciousness, to interact with these realities and other dimensions through a form of remote access or virtual reality at that certain position of planetary geography. Grid workers know this to be true and factual. When We are called to serve the planet at the geographical position we have been directed to. The location turns into an interactive environment. This is the holographic geography of the planetary field communicating with us. We can feel the many forces of nature working with us to achieve a unified goal that supports activation of consciousness and light. Many ancient cultures knew the power of the earth grids and placed geomantic structures on specific locations in order to mark the area and to amplify the forces there. There are thousands of these sacred sites marked with geomantic structures. However, the most obvious examples are the pyramids in Giza and Stonehenge in the United Kingdom. Geomantic structures are based on comprehending the geographical energy configuration, thus designing the building of that architecture on the site to amplify the configuration of that specific energy to expand consciousness. Geomantic structures can be both physical and etheric structures on Earth and can be seen in one form or in both. This means that sometimes there is a physical building that is a geomantic structure on a PowerPoint that may be currently energetically dead. This location will not have circulating energy or be connected to its etheric structure in another dimension. We may be guided to power up that etheric structure and reconnect the circulation of energy to the physical marker or geomantic structure. Our body may act as an anchor for the frequency that is required to rebuild and repair the etheric structure so that it can be energetically recircuited. Geomantic structures hold specific kinds of intelligent energy, as well as timelines and interaction points that access virtual reality in other dimensions. Further, they hold archetypes, symbolism, mythological and creation codes. All of these are factors in spiritual activation, initiation, and elevating consciousness for humans and the planetary body. When we are pulled to a certain location of geography or to a sacred site, the mythology that is related to that area has direct revelation of the nature of the subtle energies present. The ancient history is recorded from various cultures, and their myths of creation will be found within that geomantic structure. This acts as a type of holographic record for consciousness key coding. This may be very relevant for certain genetic lines, and yet for others, it may not be relevant at all. Stargate areas have genetic key codes, which we may return to for re-imprinting of that genetic key memory in order to continue expanding our consciousness on our ascending journey. We may be there to reclaim aspects of our soul identities that we must integrate before we can continue to expand consciousness and build parts of the light body. There are a host of potentials and possibilities that may happen that impact our expanding consciousness when we are devoted to service to others and spiritual ascension. Multiplication. Out of the one comes the many. This statement is to contemplate the profound meaning of the 12th alchemical stage of multiplication that begins transmitting this month. Multiplication is the alchemical process which greatly increases the concentrated refinement, energetic effectiveness, and sphere of influence of the embodied biological Christos Sophia light source. The blood is purified of karmic record and spiritualized in chemistry, creating living forces of spiritual virtues. Virtues are qualities of goodness which inhabit in the world of forces as a truth and light spiritual force. The multiplication of virtues occurs near the end of the magnum opus stages of spiritual ascension alchemy to increase the gains in the subsequent projection of Christ consciousness. This will help to multiply our energetic influence and consciousness when we are called to perform grid work on the planetary body and ongoing. This is the symbolic state in which the Christ is able to take any base substance and bless it, thus multiplying it into many fish and bread loaves to feed the hungry. Through the access of pure embodied spiritual essence, the abundance of the spiritual light flows in and multiplies itself into God forces that bless the environment from the beacon of a crystal body. It multiplies abundance and blessing for those who come into contact with it, as well as for the being who embodies its source. The spiritual alchemist at the multiplication stage has the ability to replenish themselves as they drink from the well of the limitless chalice of light. The Christ consciousness multiplies and imparts its golden seed to assist others to realize their own inner light. As the solar light multiplies, it increases in potency from its original source and through its light projection. This is striving for continued multiplication of God's inner light to activate inside others. This stage of multiplication is about serving the group consciousness, highest expression of spiritual ascension for all human beings. May we prepare for our next service mission. Please only take what is useful for your spiritual growth and discard all the rest. Thank you for your courage and bravery to be a true seeker. Until next, stay in the luminosity of your avatar, Christos Sophia heart path. Please be kind to yourself and to each other with a loving heart until next month.